Here I am in my tie-dyed hippie chick nightgown, psychedelic sort of thing. I was actually a little bit too old to be a hippie, and I wouldn't have been attracted to being a hippie anyway. But it does sort of remind me of that whole uh, culture or subculture, and of the fact that uh, now the hippies are elderly, and some of them have adjusted well. They got a lot of what they wanted. Drug laws were liberalized, sexual mores were liberalized. Some of them became conservative. Some of them stayed fairly true to their old beliefs. Um, most of them, almost all of them, settled down into regular jobs. Those that didn't, I think my ex-husband told me this a long time ago, they all settled down into regular jobs, or and those that didn't joined religious cults. Now, it does also remind me of some people who became so associated with a particular era that they couldn't adjust when things changed. Um, and I've made the parallel before of Abbie Hoffman and F. Scott Fitzgerald, which is an imperfect parallel, because I think in the case of F. Scott Fitzgerald, it when the Depression hit in the 1930s, it wasn't so much that F. Scott Fitzgerald could adjust to the new conditions, but that the general public left him behind because he was so associated with what he had called the Jazz Age. Bud Schulberg said that the sheiks and the flappers gave way to a bunch of unemployed and underemployed boys and girls standing in bread lines, and they just lost any connection with F. Scott Fitzgerald. Okay, although he continued his career and tried to continue his career, and he worked in Hollywood as a writing on scripts, but he didn't have the same success that he'd had in the 20s. Okay, and then you had Abbie Hoffman eventually committed suicide in the 1980s, partly because he was so associated with the 1960s and to some degree the 1970s. When people say the 1960s, they actually, I think, are talking to some degree about the 1960s, the middle of the 1960s and the middle of the 1970s. That's when a lot of these changes occurred. And Abbie Hoffman was very associated with those changes. But he also tended to fuse genuine political beliefs, which he did have. He had genuine socialist beliefs and social welfare beliefs, which I do respect. But he kind of fused them with a kind of youthful exuberance or kind of rebelliousness, where he would give things like titles like "Steal This Book" or "Revolution for the Hell of It," and that shows that this tendency to do that. Okay, then he approaches middle age. He automatically starts winding down, gets a pot belly, and this man who is so associated with change, revolution, okay, a lot of the changes that he wanted occurred. He couldn't demand them anymore because they occurred. And other changes occurred that he didn't like. The 80s were kind of the me decade. People were praising going upward, being upwardly mobile, and the unfortunate thing of getting more of a wealth gap was occurring. Okay, and he was still true to his old socialist beliefs, but he was feeling, like Tom Hayden said, increasingly irrelevant, um, because the young people of that day, they didn't have the same things to demonstrate against. Okay, and they wanted to make money. They basically wanted to join the boogeyman of the wealthy classes that